It is my pleasure to welcome you to this second session of the day, which will focus on the accessibility and inclusion within the transport and mobility. And I think this is very much linked to the first session that we just had, and where Engineer Rahma just mentioned the importance of including the people. So we're going to talk about how to basically design the systems to make them accessible for all. And I will quickly introduce myself. I am Volodymyr Sokorenko, and I'm going to moderate this discussion with our distinguished speaker, who I'm pleased to invite now to stage, Miss Renata Bauer-Richter from the Institute for Inclusion and Accessibility. The floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum, and very warm thank you to Vladimir for the nice and kind introduction, and an even bigger shukran to Engineer Rahma for setting the stage, because you talked not only about people, but you mentioned accessibility. So that's a perfect segue to our session now. And generally, when we talk about mobility in the region, the spotlight is usually on innovation, smart transportation, digital transformation, autonomous shuttles, and flying taxis that we see out there. And these developments matter, but they often hide one more basic and more human question. And the question is, if you look at the boats, the taxis, the flying taxis, can every person actually complete their journey? Can they go independently from door to destination? And for many people of determination and many older citizens, mobility is not a routine, it's a calculation. They just don't go out of the door and say, let me see. They really need to see, is an accessible taxi available? Will the driver know how to secure my wheelchair? Will the bus driver take out the ramp? Will the ticketing machine work if I have a reduced motor skills in my hands? And will the announcement in the public transportation be understood if I'm hard of hearing? And will the chatbot reply in easy language? Will I be able to stay calm if the scene gets a little bit more crowded and if I face flashing lights? And these needs are often invisible, but they're very common. As you all know, 15% of any given population have a disability. And only a small fraction of those disabilities are visible. So, and to include in mobility differences, we talk about sensory sensitivities, cognitive overload, reduced working memory, neurodivergent processing, and age-related changes. If a system is not usable by the most confident and fully abled person, it is not a smart system. And you might say, but we have AI, right? AI is a solution, but it's not the solution. AI is not access neutral, because we fed AI with all those inaccessible, not usable patterns. So, and that's why AI will reproduce the same failures. And we cannot leave accessibility to AI. We must design, all of us, systems that take the human with all their complex needs into consideration. And that brings me to one principle, because this is a conference of visionaries and practitioners. You might ask, what can I do to make my services more accessible? And there's a really simple and relative cost-effective measure you can take. And this is often overseen, and this is user testing. Just invite people of determination to test your vehicles, your boats, your taxis, your buses, and hopefully very soon Etihad Rail. And this is not a symbolic way to test and to engage with users. Those users need to be trained and qualified. And before you approve any new measure, we invite you to check, has it been tested by people of determination? Has it been tested by a wide range of users? Did we design for one disability, like a ramp, or did we also took into account those who are hard of hearing, who are neurodivergent, who have processing disorders? Did we? Is our procurement, and these are your best allies when you talk about accessibility, is your procurement aware about accessibility standards? Do we ask for proof of accessibility experience? And these are all the little steps that you can do so that everyone across the board can use everything that you offer in Ajman independently and successfully. And don't forget, mobility, as you all know, is dignity, is access. Access to education, access to the workplace, access to participation in life, and access to life opportunities. So we are very delighted to have this discussion today with you, and we're looking forward to your questions and to Vladimir's discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Renata. I would like to invite you now to have this discussion. We have... So you mentioned very important element regarding the procurement and the inclusive design as a prerequisite for the accessibility. Can you elaborate a bit more on what are those core design principles that we need to account for when designing the mobility and the transit systems for the people of determination and senior citizens and other people from the society?
So am I audible? There are 3 design principles, and this is the design itself, right? The built environment, the digital environment, the interpersonal services and everything that connects those systems. And then clarity, and this is one of the most overlooked principles. Are our systems easy to use? One of the biggest stressors when we talk about design principles and when we listen to people of determination and elderly and those who are not so used to travel in public transport is navigation. They are stressed out because they don't know what is the next step, where is the connecting bus, where do I find my schedule, where do I find the exit. And whoever designed this space here did a fantastic job. Look at it. It's easy. You can't miss it, right? So we have a clear, colored, and visually navigation here. So we have the design, we have clarity, and then we have recovery. Recovery means everything is good and fine as long as the system works. But do we have the plan B and C in place? What happens if the audio system for announcement doesn't work? What do we do if the screens don't work? I mean, we're in the UAE, so it's not very likely, right? But we need those plans. What do we do if the bus has a changed a stop? Is it clearly communicated? So these are the three principles. We look at design, we look at clarity, and we look at recovery.
That's very insightful and interesting. And who do you think are the key kind of players and the stakeholders who can actually push for those principles? And how different stakeholders like the governments, the operators, the actual service providers can ensure that those principles are embedded within the service?
So that's an easy question, because the drivers of change and who can really be the guardians of accessibilities are here, each and one of you. Because if we take a personal interest in accessibility, things will change. And as we know from experience, it takes a human to change design. And just to give you a very easy example from a completely different world, the current CEO of Microsoft pushed for accessibility in all his products and services as a personal mission. And one of the drivers for this change, that it is really implemented from the design phase, from the ideation to the actual product that you get in the store. One of these reasons, you might know, he has a son who's on the autism spectrum. So he had a personal interest. And if we all take a personal interest in the journey of our customers, we will see change, because at the end of the day, we have standards, right? Vladimir, you mentioned it, but it is, and engineer Rahma mentioned it as well, we serve humans. Yeah. And we need to see the human, and then we will have a different perspective on the work that we do.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and thanks also for highlighting this aspect, that it's the individual push that also takes actually people to push for these changes. But at the same time, you've mentioned a very important element, which is the standard, right? So I wanted to touch upon how the international standards for accessibility and inclusion are actually basically being integrated within the local frameworks here in the UAE. From your experience with the Institute, what do you see how that works and being implemented?
So I think the UAE is at the moment in a state where they create their own world-class standards. So, and it's very, as a proud citizen here, I think it's really fantastic to see that actually people from the other countries look at the UAE and say, oh, how do they do it? So what we see, for example, in Abu Dhabi, we have the Sahel system, which is an evaluation of not only buildings, but the entire connecting system. So we look at transportation, we look at navigation, we look at signage. So the entire customer journey, and this is a very comprehensive system. On the other hand, we see Europe just introduced end of June the European Accessibility Act. So this is a mandatory policy for all digital services, for all companies who provide products and services in the European Union. So you might say, so what? But this includes and touches of different aspects of transportation: kiosks, apps, information that is provided in airports, bus station, train stations. All of these elements must fulfill accessibility standards, and it's reinforced, and they already send out the first penalties. So what we see globally, accessibility is not an option anymore, it becomes mandatory.
That's great, and also the acknowledgement of UAE being at the forefront and having this basically ambitious that are actually implemented. That's great to hear. From your experience, where do you see the biggest progress within these solutions for inclusion and accessibility so far, and where do you see still some lags or gaps that can be filled?
I mean, in the UAE, we've seen tremendous progress with the introduction of the National Policy for People of Determination. This was also when the term people of determination was introduced. Mm-hmm. So, and this initiated a complete cascade of measurements across different sectors. So each government entity was asked to create their own plan, their own policy. They needed to fulfill KPIs. So we see that people of determination, accessibility is really at the forefront. What is not at the forefront so much is the general awareness and knowledge about disability. So when people think about disability, most of the cases, they see a wheelchair. But a wheelchair is only 2%, wheelchair users are only 2% of all people of determination. And we don't see the majority of those who are also live with a disability, but it's not visible. So what do we do with people on the autism spectrum who are neurodivergent, reduced working memory, visual disabilities, so auditory disabilities, and then on top of it, those who have, and this is the majority of people with disabilities, have a multitude of disabilities, so there are comorbidities. So are we aware what public transportation means for a person of determination? And even if we have just a simple example, one of our trained testers is a young Emirati in Abu Dhabi, very, very, very independent wheelchair user. He has access to the family's driver, but he, obviously it's a family driver, so there are a multitude of people who have access to it. So he's using the accessible taxi. But what do you guess are the operating hours of an accessible taxi in Abu Dhabi? It's only until 9 p.m. Okay. That's for a young person, not an acceptable time. So he stays back home. So, and these are elements, you know, where we see it's not only about, even if the taxis fulfill all standards, what about the operating hours? Are the drivers really trained? And all, you know, this is, you know, we need to, we need to create systems that really work together.
Mm-hmm. That's a very interesting example that you're taking also, that some of the elements may be there within the system, but still cannot be accessible due to, as you said, operating hours, for instance, issue. But can you give also the example of, let's say, of a project that the Institute has supported and led that can give the good flavor of what the accessibility, let's say, improvements have been made from your experience with the Institute?
Yes. Also, to quote Engineer Rahma again, collaboration needs to be intentional. So we work together with a public entity. They designed services for people of determination in the buses. Fantastic. The system worked, was tested, but who wasn't trained on the system was security and the majority of drivers about different kinds of disabilities. So they had this fantastic system and also built connecting systems in terms of journey, how a wheelchair user or someone with a visual disability could really navigate the bus station, the central bus station, but they haven't trained the actual key points, the touch points, security of them. And that's what we did, because they weren't aware what to look for, how to support, and it's not about giving someone a full masterclass in disability. It's about giving a security team a simple rule how to navigate, and that's the 3-minute rule, how to identify what is happening, how to check for support, and how to find a pathway for the person. That's it. But they didn't know, and there was a lot of stigma around it. On the other hand, we are currently conducting a workshop for engineers on the disability customer journey. So what does door to destination look like for different people of determination? And we let them identify in a design thinking approach, where do they see roadblocks, how they could be eliminated, we let them check for standards. So, and you might think this could be done by AI. Indeed, it could be done by AI to a certain degree, but it doesn't create this human understanding of following a person of determination, really from home to the final destination, and what they could experience, and how those inaccessibilities accumulate and generate a lot of stress. So, and if engineers who are designing the process, who are responsible for signing off certain aspects, if they understand it, you have a different system.
That's very interesting, and again, you highlighted the other point that it is important to also train all the different staff and personnel on the use of those systems, and also to be able to guide those people of determination to use the system, right? So maybe moving a bit towards the technology part, you also mentioned that AI is a solution, but at the same time we still need to find a way on how to use that. In terms of the assistive technologies that are there to support, what are let's say, the most prominent ones that you see are actually working and being implemented?
So for assistive technology, I think it's always good to have a quick definition. What is assistive technology? Assistive technology is every product and every feature that reduces the effort to communicate, to use a product, to navigate a space, and there's a multitude. There are low-tech and high-tech. So if you think about a white cane that a person with a visual disability would use, this is assistive technology, right? But if you look at VR glasses that could really identify and describe in an audio way for a person who's also blind the environment, and tell them how many steps away the exit is, this is also assistive technology. So this is also happening on a spectrum. A very easy example, super cost effective, could improve the life of really thousands of people for a fraction of a dirham per use, is the installation of hearing induction loops. So a lot of people with hearing impairments and the elderly are using hearing aids, right? So, but if you speak, for example, at a counter, with a bus driver, at the airport, it's a very noisy environment. If you install a hearing induction loop, it reduces the background noise and connects you directly to the speech. So, fantastic assistive technology, not widely implemented. And if you look at other aspects, and here AI comes really into play, apps. Apps could be personalized for personalized use, and you might say there's a privacy issue. People of determination are happy to give up certain privacy and confidential rights if they would have access to seamless transportation and mobility. And obviously, if the data that are stored are really stored on the phone or on the app and don't leave the country.
Yeah, that's clear, and also we see how this new technologies are actually being implemented, being realized, and actually working. And one additional question that I would have on the aspect of technologies: what are the challenges that you see of deploying those so far? So you said that some of them are not widely accessible or widely implemented. What's the reason behind it? Is it still because they need some testing, some piloting, or what's the main challenge behind it?
As again, Engineer Rahma mentioned, it's PP. Okay. But in another way, it's people and policies and practice. Yeah? So if they're not widely implemented, people don't see it, and people are not used to use it. People need to be intentional about increasing accessibility in their services, to check if their ticketing systems, if their apps are accessible for someone using a screen reader. Can you zoom into your apps? Can you increase the screen and the font of your apps? So if you're not intentional about it, it won't happen. So these are the people. And then policies. We need policies that really mandate that we serve all our users. And there's a simple example. I don't know if you have seen that in your banks, if you're still going to the branch of your banks, we see ramps all of a sudden. We see a lot of lower desks for people of determination. So for example, a wheelchair user can easily access the desk of the service accountant. Why did they do it? Because they're friendly people? Might be. But because UAE Central Bank stated a new consumer protection policy. So, and this goes back to your question. We need policies, otherwise it's not widely adopted and implemented. And UAE can be really first in class. There are really exciting accessibility tools out there, like apps for sign language that introduce vocal speech into sign language and vice versa. I mean, these things are not perfect, but they need early adopters so they can improve and be widely implemented. Just simple examples.
That's great, a great example. And also, I know that we can continue discussion for a long time, but also given the time, I would have few more last questions on the element of the policy. From your experience and perspective, what is the key, let's say, principle or takeaway that every policymaker should take, or the operator should take, to enable this accessibility, to make sure that those systems are designed for people of determination?
Policies need to be based on standards. So they must mandate that certain standards are fulfilled. Knowing also, I mean, here are a lot of practitioners, we know when a standard comes finally into action and is implemented, it's basically outdated because it takes ages to create such a standard. So, and to know that a standard is the basic minimum, and there's always something that can be done on top of it to be innovative. A standard per se is not innovation. It's a compromise. But we can do more. And it's, if you use in a policy the global and local standards as the baseline, and you expect more from your vendors and procurement, you are creating an innovative system that doesn't have any rivals in the region.
That's great. We talk a lot about the importance of people and human in this session. So my last question would be, what does the human-centered mobility mean to you, and how that is actually working in practice as a final note from your end?
If it's implemented in a way that every customer can use it without negotiations, without taking the additional burden of learning a new system, because that's what we do. As soon as we implement a new system, we expect that our users get used to it and learn how to do it. So, and most systems are not very intuitive. So if we rebalance the burden of transportation system and add those micro learnings so that everyone can use it easily, even our grandmothers, for example, then we are at a stage where we really unleash the full potential of mobility, and this is really access to life opportunities.
Great. Thank you very much for your perspective and for all these insights. I'll probably open the floor for some questions. We have some time from the audience.
Zuerst guten Tag, Frau Baubrichter, und vielen Dank für Ihre Präsentation und Gespräch heute. Ich bin Abdel Fattah und ich arbeite bei Ajman Transport Authority als Business Continuity und Risk Specialist. Ich habe ein paar Fragen und ich werde die nächsten Fragen auf Englisch stellen, natürlich, damit alle hier uns verstehen könnten. You mentioned that there are standards for accessibility inclusion systems. So, what are the main pillars for such a standard in terms of tech, operational points, users, and is there some sort of like an ISO standard for it? And to close it, would be there an accessibility index that we can measure and compare with other, let's say, entities or organizations? Thank you very much.
Okay. Zuerst, Mabruk. Your German is excellent. Would love to more about it. Anyway, yes, there are standards. So when we talk about the digital accessibility, we have web accessibility standards. It's a globally recognized standard that includes apps, websites, any digital information that is screened. Then we have the most innovative standard at the moment, and it's indeed the European Accessibility Act, also mostly digital, but also including connecting systems. Then we have a fantastic local standard. We have the Dubai Building Code. We have the UAE Building Code. We have in Abu Dhabi the Sahel system that will be implemented by most probably end of the year or early 2026. So we have those standards. What we don't have are connecting systems that you are asking for an index. Not yet, but this is the dream of every accessibility strategist, so maybe we can work on it. Dankeschön.
Good morning. My name is Ziara. I'm a revenue manager at RATP Dev Group. My question is, how do we measure whether a mobility system is truly inclusive or not just in design, but in lived passengers' experience across different demographic groups? And how we can ensure that passengers with limited literacy or accessibility needs are not left behind? Thank you.
Excellent. This is really the core of our entire discussion, and you summarized it really beautifully. How can we do it? Implementing standards, that's the basic, right? It's very technical. Can be done. You need experts to do this. And then the interesting part comes, and this is user testing. Having actual people who have been trained in standards they know what accessible navigation looks like. To have those people and have trained users with a broad range of disabilities, and also bring in, I really like to say it, your grandmothers, your grandfathers obviously as well. So if they can use it, then you are already a step ahead of the competition. And have those user testing not only as a one-off in the approval and sign-off process, but install a board of people of determination as advisors. Obviously advisors who are using your services, right? So then you create a dialogue, a constant discourse. And this is really important because we don't learn in a one-off workshop. That's, that's not how we adapt and adopt knowledge. We need a constant feedback loop. And if you have such an advisory board, if you install this with accessibility experts and do this on a regular basis, you will expand the accessibility and inclusion expertise, but also awareness at a multitude. You can't imagine this transformation that will be happening in your organizations. So this is very doable. Thank you.
I think we have one more question there.
Hi, my name is Dr. Prabhas Kumar. I'm from FEAM Middle East. It was great, Engineer Renate, that you have touched most of the aspects of people of determination, challenges and aspects. Regarding the policy and the integration, as you have also highlighted, in public transportation actually, many of the people, public transportation is not accessible. So which all extra measures or policy to be determined so that it will be accessible to most of the people of determination? One can be like providing free travel or providing some extra services, that is bus on demand services in terms of coverage and all. So I believe these things are still lacking in this region. So what would you be suggesting in terms of policy making and building? Thank you.
So you really touched upon a few really relevant topics. So, and the easiest is the cost, right? So, and the beauty is people of determination have already access to free transport through their People of Determination card. So, Dubai metro and public transport is completely free for people of determination, also to a certain extent taxi. Same in Abu Dhabi. The only problem is the interconnecting buses are still not free of charge, at least for those who come from Abu Dhabi. Anyway, so this is, so just to acknowledge, a lot is already in place. I think what we need is really also training on the user side. You know, a lot of people of determination and their families don't know how safe, reliable and accessible transportation already is. Right? And if they don't know it, they won't use it. And it's also a question of trust. And I think this could be done in, you know, in a very efficient way and could be rolled out quite easily, to have influencers in the People of Determination community who become mobility champions to talk about it. Anything else is really the single P, policy. And this needs to be designed and implemented and revised, but there are a lot of things that we can do before with the first P, and this is people. Thank you.
If we don't have any other questions, I would suggest to thank everyone for joining this session, and also to thank Renata for all of your insights. This again reminds us that the progress is actually not only about the technology and innovation, but also how to make sure that the systems are actually accessible every day to all different people, people of determination, senior citizens, and all others. Thanks a lot for this discussion.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. Shukran.